What's going on, everybody? I'm Jason Mackey, and this is my Saturday Conversations podcast, a place where we can go a little bit deeper with a lot of folks who are familiar around the Pittsburgh sports scene. My guest today is one of my favorite people in this business. We're neighbors, coworkers, friends, but I also respect the heck out of Mr. Adam Crowley of 93.7 The Fan because of how he goes about his job. We're going to talk about that. He's a Mount Lebanon graduate, a West Virginia product, has a theater background, does an awesome job mixing humor, sports takes while anchoring the Fan Morning Show with Doran Dickerson, something he's done since May of 2022. Thanks for joining me, Adam. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, thank you, buddy. I expected you to say a lot of those things. I was not expecting you to say the respect thing, and that does mean a lot coming from you. That's no shtick. I mean that. I also see that you look outstanding. I mean, the lighting there is good. You're in I believe, a home studio. You look young,
Sure. Thank
and
you.
you are slightly older than me, and I look like I have aged 15 years in the last 2 years. This is not a good look for me.
Well, one of us is going to do a radio show tonight. You already did your show. So, I mean, you're relaxing. Your day is over. I'm in the middle of my day. I had my newspaper stuff done this morning and radio stuff done tonight. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate you squeezing this in. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. I want to talk about how Adam got into sports radio in the first place. The morning show is an interesting drill. I've done that a little bit filling in. It has kicked my butt every time I've done it. So I want to hear about how you're able to do this, where you draw inspiration from, all kinds of stuff. That's kind of what we do here. Talk a little shop, talk about the business. First, want to remind you, though, that this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, Adam Crowley, you're at WVU. I believe you're a broadcast comm major there and a theater minor. What made you get into radio? How did we go from that to sports talk radio, anchoring the Fan Morning Show or whatever? What was the first step for you?
It's pretty simple. I couldn't write, so I wanted to be in media, and I wanted to do anything with sports. Figured because of my diminutive size and lack of athletic ability that I wouldn't be able to break in a way that I could be a general manager of a team, which would have been cool.
Sizable to be a GM, Adam. You could be I think offensive line waved goodbye to you a long time ago.
Well, I tried to get back up to offensive line weight at West Virginia, but fell just short. Probably could have been like a move tight end, something like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go to a big school, and I wanted to cover sports. And at Mount Lebanon, they do a really good job of teaching you how to write. I mean, they really do. It's a huge focus. And so I guess I wouldn't say that I'm a terrible writer, but I'm not a professional level writer. I would need the world's best editors. And I found that out pretty quickly there when I started to mingle with some of the people who wrote for the Daily Athenaeum, who wrote for the magazines in the area, that probably talking would be my way to make it in this industry, particularly because I never shut up. But it was always sports, Jason. It was... Mike Lange recently passed away, one of the absolute best people, all-time greats. But being 10 years old, watching the Penguins, and running upstairs not to tell my parents about Rico Fata or Konstantin Koltsov, but to tell them, about, that was professional right there, but to tell them about
It's real, buddy,
a particular Mike Lange goal call.
Did you ever get to meet Mikey? Sorry to interrupt you. But
I did. I bummed a cigarette from him at the old place that
we know
I worked.
We had those.
No doubt about it. And couldn't have been nicer. Very welcoming to young people in the industry. And it's something that I actually talked to Josh Getzoff about a while back, that Mikey couldn't have been more helpful with him. But I bummed a cigarette from Mike Lange in the parking lot at the old place. I used to produce Stan Savran's show back at the old place, and so I would be in regular contact getting him on Stan's show from time to time, weekly, actually, I think it was. And I actually texted Mike one time by accident when I thought I was texting my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time, and it was something along the lines of, "I love you." It wasn't anything like, there were no sexts or anything like that.
That's good. That would be very awkward. All right.
And he handled
Like
it.
you said.
Oh, he handled it in stride because I sent it and then I went back and immediately realized what I had done and apologized. And I think he probably got a pretty good chuckle out of it. But it was always, to answer the original question, I get a bit rambly in the late afternoon because that is when, this is midnight for me.
Yeah.
But it was always sports, hockey, baseball, football, first loves, probably in that order. And I just knew I wanted to do something in the industry.
Yeah. So you had quite a bit of time grinding too. And I love that and respect that about you. You went from WVU, I believe, right to an iHeart affiliate, right?
Yeah, I interned at iHeart after my freshman year at West Virginia, and I was producing the Joe Bendel show at the time. And you really do need a bounce, I think, to break into this industry. Timing is everything. Who you know really helps. And one of my good family friends is actually a Pirates team doctor now, but he was Joe Bendel's doctor. And Joe wound up getting me in there for an internship at iHeart. And I sat and listened to his show and cut audio and worked sort of behind the scenes there that summer. And then from there on out, I would drive back during the weekends at West Virginia, which, I mean, that's why you go to West Virginia, is for the weekends. And I would drive back and I would produce paid programming shows on the weekends. And on Sundays, I would produce the Pirates pre and post game show, and I would eat chicken selects from McDonald's. And this is also why I got to become the size of an offensive lineman. And I would just drive back and forth.
What did you get to?
See, I don't like to say that because people go, that's probably what you should weigh. I don't carry weight well on my frame. Right. It goes right to my face, right to the gut. But, I mean, I looked like a giant baby. I had the baby face, couldn't grow a beard back then. And there was too much meat on the bones, Mackey.
Yeah. I had a large stage too in college. I had my senior year of college. I was our closer, and I decided I want to get huge. And so, like, I lifted and ate everything. And I weigh about 195, 200 now. How much do you think I got up to?
You're what, 6'4", 6'5"? You're 6'4".
6'4".
You weigh 195 now. I see you jogging around the area all the time.
I know. I just finished the run.
Yeah, that was probably not a well, you didn't you took a shower too, clearly, which is good.
I did.
You wouldn't want to be around me right now. I just finished up with a workout myself. And I did not shower. I'd say you probably, 260? Did you get to 260?
Not quite. 240. 240. I topped out about 240.
What is it with closers, man? I feel like that it's part of that closers mentality.
I loved it. I let myself get wacky. I grew an orange mohawk. It was fun.
How hard was Mackey throwing back then?
Not hard enough. 86, I think, was about the most I ever hit.
Picking corners.
Like D3 ball was fine.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding anything. I'm not trying to act like I was going pro or something. I just like playing.
Was it a big pitch mix you had going on? Or
no, very tiny pitch mix.
Fastball slider kind of guy?
Fastball splitter was basically it. I threw a curveball, and it was just a show me pitch. I wasn't getting anybody out with it. It stunk. So I had a little bit of velocity. I joke with people like hey, I'm supposed to be interviewing you. Why are you interviewing?
I love this, though. I love this. I do think people like for whatever reason.
No, I want the banter. I want to go back and forth. That's cool.
Yeah, people I've found, we just finished our 15th anniversary at the Fan, and you of course, you held it down. I know. Thanks. I know. I laughed.
Nobody brought us a sandwich or anything.
Well,
Charlie Borges are we're just by ourselves. You guys having a great time.
We ate it all very quickly.
Yeah, all right.
We were just talking about ourselves a lot on stage at the anniversary party, and people seem to love that kind of thing because they do get to know you through your writing, through your on-air work, and I do think people are curious, and I know I'm curious. So you got the fastball, splitter, show me curveball mix. Was that why you didn't start? Did you need more pitches?
Yeah, that was it. I mean, my location would be pure. So here's a couple of random stories. Everybody talks about the Paul Skeens splinker, which is true, and it's an incredible pitch. I will honestly say, and I'm not making this up, I threw a version of that in college. Obviously not as well, not as hard. It was, it was junk, but like,
Yeah, the stinker, they called it.
Yeah, this
not quite as good.
Yeah. If Paul Skeens is like Division I college, I'm toiling around the elementary school playground, but it was still the same pitch. So I mean that's what I threw for a change of speed thing. I took a little bit more miles per hour off of it, but it was a splitter. I was able to wedge the ball between my two fingers and like pronate my hand and get a little bit of run on that thing. But yeah, I just never had enough spin. I still can't make a ball spin. I had a stint, like I made a couple starts in college, but I had a pretty rubber arm. Honestly, I tried making my college coach catch me. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I did the best. And he was always like, I need you to pitch in the bullpen. And I would, I appeared in a lot of games. My senior year, our Florida trip, we had 2 doubleheaders the first 2 days. I pitched in all 4 games. So like,
holy cow,
I was able to work pretty regularly. I just wasn't that good.
I don't mean to keep like interviewing you, so I'll stop after this. But do you feel like that has helped you? Like when you go into the locker room and talking to the guys? Absolutely. I would imagine so. Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'll make fun of myself. And obviously, I'm not going to bring up my own career on their level, but I like to think that I know enough to not sound like a doofus.
Right.
I know enough to at least like respectfully ask a question or don't ask a question or just BS about something. Like it definitely helps build a relationship. And they know that like I've been there on some level. And I do think it's important, athletes looking at sports reporters and the people, like we talk to them all the time. If I'm going to criticize their like effort or certain things that they're doing or whatever, like at least know that I can move around a little bit. I can run. I've done this at some level. I mean, it's not essential, but I don't think it hurts. So yes, it's definitely been a conversation starter, and we can make fun of me too.
Well, which we always do, and that's a two-way street. Yeah, I do think sometimes there could be this feeling of it being this adversarial relationship, and it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, obviously you're covering what's happening. You're not trying to paint someone the villain if they're not a villain. But I think any little advantage there can be to relating to those guys is massive.
Yeah. All right. So you had a big career move. I'm going to steer this train back on the tracks a little bit. You're with iHeart. And then in March of 2022, you hopped over from there to The Fan. And I believe was owned by Audacy at the time. Well, that wasn't Entercom, right? But doesn't matter. You go from, ESPN Pittsburgh to The Fan. You and I both had sort of similar paths that way. Like I was at the Trib, DK Pittsburgh Sports, wind up at the Post-Gazette. You're at iHeart, wind up at The Fan. Kind of crossing paths, crossing tracks, whatever you want to say a little bit. Was that ever awkward for you? How did you manage, going from a competing radio station to the other one and, maintaining some friendships, I'm sure, but you're also working for the enemy?
Yeah, some of my best friends that I have ever had, will ever have, I met over there. Tom Opferman, he is the producer of Mark Madden's show, of all people. And Mark was instrumental in my career, has been instrumental in my career as well. Yeah. Brian LaMartina, who was my direct superior over there, just a tremendous guy, really has helped me so much in life and in radio. So those are guys that I absolutely love and adore to this day. I don't think it was a surprise to the higher-ups there when I jumped ship because we were transitioning still out of COVID, and I had been doing the afternoon show there for a couple of years. And I think they never explicitly told me this. I think that they had to make budget cuts. And so what they thought was the right thing to do for me, instead of getting rid of that position, which let's face it, nobody listened to the show. It's a bad signal. They sort of reappropriated me under the national umbrella. And so I was doing sports updates, and I was doing them from my basement in a closet. And that's just not what I'm good at. Like, I'm not gonna give you facts for 30 seconds and be satisfied with that at all. I appreciate what they did for me. I'm not saying that, because they could have just said, see ya, and they didn't. So I'm forever grateful for that. You got to feed your family. And at that time, my God, the entire country was struggling, right? The entire world. So I don't think it was a surprise for them whenever I said, listen, like, I need to go someplace I can grow. I'll tell you what I have been surprised with is how fast the growth has happened at Audacy.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Riley, Chris Muller, I think were instrumental in getting me over where I am now. Chris and I had a lot of conversations leading up to that, and even just friend conversations before that. And when I reached out to Craig, he was really excited about there being a potential fit. And then, SPAC or Boss was able to give me the opportunity too. And I was hired doing part-time stuff.
Yeah.
And almost immediately, Joe Kopp, the midday producer, left. He saw it fit at that time to move on, and he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And so they moved Matt Cole from mornings, and they slid me in there, and it kind of went a lot faster, all of it, than I thought that it would.
That's awesome, man. Well, I want to talk to you about some of that. I want to talk to you about how you do the morning show. I love your approach. I think it's very listenable. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to you because of it. I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, we have a message on these things, Adam, from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. So while we all were sad and cold, you can look at 30 seconds of much warmer things as soon as I find it. There we go.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
All right, welcome back to Saturday Conversations. Jason Mackey here. My guest this week, Adam Crowley from the Fan Morning Show. And so, Adam, we were talking about you switching over to the Fan Morning Show. I have filled in that spot a couple times. Like I said, I've not mastered it. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. How do you change your life to get up for work at 2 a.m.? What? Just take me through a little bit of how you prepare for this, how you guys live your life to, it's a non-traditional work schedule.
I really just don't think about it, honestly.
Really?
That's the approach that has worked for me. And I'll say, if you filled in for a month, Jason,
You'd get used to it.
You would. The harder thing, because back in my old job, when I was doing those sports updates, I woke up at 3 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday to do those. And I actually found that infinitely harder than doing it 5 days a week, because you'd live your normal life Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, you're waking up at 3 a.m. And man, that was tough. So
let me interject real quick. I should have said something before. People may not realize this. If you do the morning show, you don't just roll in at 5:40 or 6 o'clock and start talking. It's I don't know what I was always told when I try to do an hour of prep for an hour of talk time. So if you're hosting I don't know if that's different for what you got. Maybe you do it the night before, but so that's why we're talking about getting there earlier. I know when I did it, I think I got up at 2:30, left my house at 3, was there at 3:15 or something. You're there early to prepare. Anyway.
Yeah. And when I first started, back when I was producing, I would get in a lot earlier. That was just what worked for the hosts. That was their preference.
Yeah.
Now I get in, between 3:45, and it depends on what's happening. 4:30, depending on what Dorn and I and our producer, Nicholas Harry Callis, have discussed the night before. Sometimes it's fish in a barrel where it's Steeler season, and it's pretty formulaic. I mean, what Mondays are, their reaction. What Fridays are, their preview. On Wednesday, you've got a lot of Mike Tomlin stuff to react to.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, I think the wake up time, the prep time, the morning of can vary depending on how much you are thinking about it the day before. And, the way I approach the show is everything can be content. I think, and I'm not putting myself in this category, but I think people who are good at this, they view it the same way, where you stub your toe and maybe you say a bad word and your wife reacts to it, or, oh my God, you're a terrible father. Your daughter heard something you said, and everything can become content. And every day it's just the notes app is open because I'll forget things. I got the ADHD brain, so I'll just write things down all day long. I know Doran does the same thing. We send each other things that we think are good talking points. And one of the things I've also found working with Doran, and I did not know this before I started working with him, is he's a super creative dude, a really creative dude. And I'll peel it back even further. I feel like personally, I've been in a little bit of a writer's block lately. And Doran's come to the table with some super cool, really creative ideas. And it's great to know that, okay, I might have things planned. And if Doran's got something that's better, okay, great. If Nick says something that we think can be good, we'll just run with that. And so working with good people, a great boss, Craig, who also is good at cultivating ideas, it really helps to be able to know that, man, I might not have the fastball today. I might have to go to my 82-mile-an-hour splitter, if you will.
Yeah.
But those guys, you can always fall back on other creative people.
I love it, man. That's good stuff. When you listen to radio, when you design a radio show, or you're going for something, is there something that you grew up listening to that you look at and kind of try to emulate? Do you try to steal something from everybody? Like, where are you pulling from when you think about a show that you want to create or a persona that you want to create?
I've had a ton of influences. I think the people that I've worked closely with have shaped the way that I want to do it. But if there's one listening influence, just as something that entertained me, that not that I emulate, but that I wish that I wish I could be good enough to, is the Dan Le Batard show.
Okay.
I used to watch it religiously, listen to it religiously, because I think one of the keys to doing it the way that I want to do it is you can't take yourself too seriously. B, you can't take the medium too seriously, because my God, what we're doing for a living is talking about sports. And my opinion might suck, but who cares? We're talking again about sports. And then C, I think, did I do 1, 2, C? Doesn't matter.
That doesn't. You're like Buzz from Home Alone.
That's right.
A,
that's
B.
Right. Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof. I think you can not take yourself too seriously, understand where it fits in the ecosystem of people's lives, but also take the job really seriously. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try to do. I try to think about things intentionally, but I don't mind being the butt of the joke. And people will come at me online like, you can't hurt my feelings. You can't offend me. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Cool. Did your wife listen to you?
Yes.
I asked this for a reason. Does she give you feedback?
Yes. Yes.
And do you like it? My wife will listen to me. I don't know why.
Well, she loves you, Jason.
I'm not that. I guess. I don't know.
She wants to make sure that you're actually where you're saying you are too, and that you're not off doing some like goofy stuff.
Dude, we joke about that all the time. That not that my wife would ever have to worry about me going around and doing something that I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And between the radio and Twitter and whatever, I mean, it is a tracer. If your husband is a sports, you can't go anywhere.
No,
she knows where I am.
Most easy people on the face of the earth to know exactly where we are at all times. And there's I say that with an element of anxiety, but nonetheless, yeah, she gives feedback. She doesn't always love when I use our life as content.
Okay.
And I've always said, like on the old show, I haven't said this on the new show, but on the old show, I said the number one virtue of the Crowley show is transparency. Yeah. Like I just don't believe in going on there and faking it. And if I'm having a bad day, I think people can probably know. I think when I'm having a good day, then people know, because that's real life. That's what, everyone's going through stuff. And I like to think too that listening to our show, you use the word listenable. I mean, I think that's what we're going for. We're not pretending, like I certainly won't. I'm not pretending to be the smartest guy on the radio, the most eloquent guy on the radio.
No, it's conversational. It's fun. It's
Can you come hang out? That's sort of the idea. Yeah.
And I like that, the way I'm like learning this and trying to do what you do a little bit more. Like, I don't feel comfortable lecturing people, yelling at people or whatever. It's a different dynamic, of course, in the evenings and I'm by myself, but I like the, come into this conversation we're having. Let's have some fun. Let's laugh a little bit. So
yeah,
I like that.
I always found too, Jason, and you're doing this a lot right now, that it can be tough to find the humor element, to create the humor element when you're by yourself too. I mean, and that's why I do think callers can be so, they're so important in what we do.
I've been so lucky too, man.
Yeah.
Charlie Borges has been fellow Westminster guy. We have a great time.
He's awesome.
He's so fun.
He's going places too, man. He's a really bright dude, really funny dude.
I love him.
Yeah.
I love him. All right, we're going to take a short break. It's like 10 seconds just to cut this for YouTube. We're going to come back and talk a little Pittsburgh sports stuff with Adam Crowley. Some fun topics. We're not going to hammer the same stuff that we're doing all the time on the radio, but stay with us. Just a quick break. All right, man. Let's dissect some storylines, maybe in kind of a different way, through the lens of a radio show host. Which Pittsburgh sports team do you enjoy talking about the most? Which Pittsburgh sports team do you enjoy talking about the least? Do you think about that at all, or does it not matter to you?
It's a great question, and I don't know that I've been introspective enough to think about it before. Okay. But now that I have filibustered here, the team that I like, the team I like talking about the most is the Pirates, but it gets dragged to the lowest common denominator the most. Like, you can't have an intelligent conversation and then open up the phone lines without the usual, well, Bob nutting this, economics of baseball that. And believe me, I'm a fan first and foremost, so I do get it. But I like talking about the game of baseball, but that's always not the biggest seller either, because it gets very granular. There's 162 games. You can't dissect every one of them like it's Game 7 of the World Series. I wouldn't mind doing that. I think we can do it in creative ways to make it fun and upbeat. But the sport that I most enjoy talking about purely would be baseball.
Same. And I don't think
I thought that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, I tip that pretty easily. But, it always baffles me, Adam, when people say that they don't care about the Pirates. And I go on this rant with our site, people telling me you don't care. We measure what you're reading.
Right.
And then, they can go on the radio and say, we don't care about why don't you talk about something that matters? But if you bring out a topic that's the right topic, at least radio-wise, with the Pirates, and it elicits a reaction, the phone lines light up. Don't tell me you don't care. You're mad, but don't tell me you don't care.
And you're lighting a fuse here too, Jason, because people will do that all the time. They'll say, and more specifically with the Steelers, people wonder, why do you talk about the Steelers all the time? Well, we're not dumb.
Right.
I wouldn't be.
Because you're listening to it. That's why.
Right. And look, I'm never afraid to pat ourselves on the back when we do a good job, because there are going to be days where you don't. You're going to have ratings books, perhaps even quarters where you're not doing well. Our ratings are really strong right now. Our ratings as a station are really strong right now. Some of the best ever. And it's because we can measure now more in real time what people care about, what engages people than ever before. When our show's over, we pop into Craig's office and we can look at the stream numbers, people who are listening online, and we can know what topics hit, what topics didn't. And so when we're talking about something and you think, listeners out there, I'm talking to you now, when you think, wow, these guys are beating the dead horse, boy, or what, like, do they have nothing else to talk about? No, we're talking about what the majority of people, our data is showing us, wants us to be talking about. And so I get it. Like, I like variety, and we try to mix in as much as possible, but we also need to get the numbers so that we can stick around and so that we can continue to provide for our families.
Yep. That's the same thing on this side, man. There's a reason we have so many people covering the Steelers or writing about the Steelers, and, we appropriate things a different way. We're traveling for Steelers, blah, blah, blah. People are reading them. So, all right. I want to ask you a Steelers question that I'm curious about. I've batted this around. I don't have an answer to it. I just think it's fascinating. Why do Steelers fans funnel everything toward Mike Tomlin? And do you sense that? It's like, it seems like almost like Pirates fans directing ire at Bob Nutting, which I understand a little bit more because he owns the team and the contract stuff, or the financial stuff, whatever. It seems like every Steelers conversation, somebody will take it to Mike Tomlin. It doesn't matter. It's Mike Tomlin's fault. Mike Tomlin did this. Mike Tomlin did that. People just seem to get so jazzed up over Tomlin. Any ideas why?
Well, I think it's Oh, an interesting place right now in Pittsburgh sports, Jason, but we'll keep it Steelers related.
Interesting place.
It's
It's a euphemism for depressed, Adam.
Well, it's depressing.
Place.
There's no doubt, and it's depressing because people don't see an end in sight. I think I lost you, but you might still be there.
I
found you again. Okay.
All right.
It's depressing because people don't see an end in sight. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's generally a ripcord, right? Where if you've been a fan of the Penguins through the years, okay, fire a coach, go win a cup. If you're a fan of the Pirates, you bring in Clint Hurdle and things changed, and Neil Huntington and things changed. And if you think about the Steelers, Bill Cowher retires and then Mike Tomlin gets them back to that level just a couple of years later. Well, Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere. And so I think there's this hopelessness that, oh my God, where is this light at the end of the tunnel? I have begun to direct my ire at a different person, though, and that's Art Rooney II, because it's not Mike Tomlin's fault that he's employed. It's not Mike Tomlin's fault that he gets to make all the decisions. I think other franchises would have moved off of Mike Tomlin at this point. And I think Mike Tomlin's a heck of a football coach, but sometimes he just gets stuck in the mud a little bit, and I think that's where they are. But my frustration now is more pointed towards Art Rooney II, because I think there's a lot of changes that can and should be made. And I mean, he's got feet of steel, man.
Yeah. Who has it the best? Like who's going to experience success next, win a playoff game next, however you can frame that. Like, who do you feel best about?
I think the Steelers are probably most likely to win a playoff game next.
Yeah.
Because while we can criticize Mike Tomlin for his ceiling being as low as it is, his floor is incredibly high. And while they haven't shown up in first quarters of playoff games, I mean, I think the right matchup, like if they had played Houston this year, perhaps they'd have had a chance. Like, I think they're the best team of the bunch, inarguably, right now, even though they're no great shakes. I think the next team to win a championship could be the Penguins. I think Kyle Dubas.
I agree with that.
I think he's got a clear direction right now. I think he's trapped a little bit to an extent, clearly, with who he can move.
Yeah.
Letang and Malkin. He's not going to move Crosby, but I think anybody else is probably not untouchable. And he's got 15 top 3-round draft picks in the next 3 years combined. He's got 2 first-round draft picks coming up. They're going to be in a lottery position this year. Plus, the salary cap's going to go up like $30 million in the next 3 years. Yeah. People think it needs to be the dark ages for the Penguins. I don't think it needs to last all that long. He needs to make the right moves. He didn't with guys like Ryan Graves. I still don't fault him for the Carlson move at all. He made the wrong move with Tristan Jarry. There's 2 to name, but I don't think it needs to take as long as it's taken Detroit. I don't think it needs to take as long as it's taken the Chicago Blackhawks. I think this thing can be done in a relatively short period of time. And I know I'm long-winded here. I'll mention one example.
Yeah, come on, hurry up. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry. You need to get the hell out of here. Prepare for your show. The Rangers put it on Ranger letterhead that they were rebuilding.
I know.
Like, this sucks. We came up short. We're rebuilding. And then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Why don't we sign this Artemi Panarin guy? And it all sort of turned around for them. So I don't think it needs to take the Penguins all that long. So it's a total guess, Jason. And I think if the Pirates did, spend $35-40 million this offseason and next offseason like they did last offseason, I think they would be the clear answer. But right now, I think my best guess would be like legitimate, like hope-bringing postseason success. I really think it could be the Penguins.
That's fair. And I don't even think the Pirates need to spend $40 million. And that would be my answer to the question. I think the Pirates are honestly potentially best situated. Now, I'm not saying they're going to, but they've got the hardest part of building a baseball team figured out. They've got elite starting pitching. I feel pretty, and they have a lot of it. I don't know if they have the offense. I don't know if Brian Hayes is going to stay healthy. I don't know if Joey Bart's going to, have a redo of what he did last year. I don't know if Endy, Henry, Jack, these guys are going to pan out. But if they do, if they even get league average offense to pair with this pitching staff, man, watch this city go absolutely bananas for the Pirates. They're so eager to do it. We got a taste of it last year through 100 games, and I just think it would be.
It's the best when they're
really
good. They're my favorite team to be good because we've experienced it so little.
Yeah.
And because you get it every single night.
I know.
Every single night you have something to look forward to. And real quick, because again, I'm sorry, but
You're fine, man. You're fine.
but I think, you say league average. They were so bad offensively last year. If you can get even a notch below league average,
That's what I mean,
but the
I want
rotation
like
can be what you need it to be.
in runs. That's what I want.
I'm with you on that. And so you mentioned so many guys there that would need to either sustain their production from last year in the case of Joey Bart, but others like Brian Hayes who would need to bounce back, or Jack Sawinski in a big way. But you mentioned a bunch of guys. You don't need all of them to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of guys, and if a couple of them can do it, now you start creeping closer to league average, and you'll always have the people, and I might be one of them on the radio, who say, oh my gosh, look at what they did, and think about what they could have done if they spent. But I think in the moment, I'll be enjoying it, and I don't think it's that far-fetched. You look at some of the ZIP projections, they're like 81 and 81. All you need to do is outperform that a little bit.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, 85 wins gets you in. And like we've discussed so many times on the radio and in other forums, Jason, like, you're right. You get into the postseason where it's short series and there's a lot of luck and there's small sample sizes. With that rotation, you would have a shot.
Yep. All right, last question. This is a fun one. And I know for me, it would be easy. It would be the Grateful Dead. The question is, if you could talk about something on the radio that is not sports and also not your family, because of course we'd love to talk about our family and all that stuff, but like a hobby, a passion, something like that you know a lot about, that you could just give some takes, give some context to, that you would just love to tell the masses that you're into, what would it be?
The obvious thing that I'm into is West Virginia sports, but that doesn't count because
that is sports. Yeah.
That's sports. Yeah. And I'm a guy who I love movies. I haven't seen enough of them. I'm big on TV right now. I think we're in the golden age of television. It's not traditional television, but you know what I mean.
Okay.
So what I would tell you is the thing that I know most about other than sports is Harry Potter.
And I didn't see that coming.
It's the truth. And I'll give you a quick story because I have been long-winded. I need to, I'll use a Tomlin quote. I'm a big seek comfort guy.
Okay.
So at night when I'll go to bed, I'll watch an episode of The Office. Something I'm comfortable with, something I'm familiar with, something you don't feel bad falling asleep with, right? Because you've seen it a million times. But when COVID happened, our daughter was just born. My dad needed a heart transplant. So this ain't a political thing. People don't get on my case, but nobody knew. We were being as careful as we possibly could because we didn't want to kill my dad or my baby.
Yeah.
And what I would do at night is I would read the Harry Potter books because I was familiar with them. I was transported to a magical world that reminded me of it, probably in ways that I hadn't really thought about, helped me through my adolescence and growing up and kind of being bullied and kind of a weirdo sort of mini person. And when COVID happened and I didn't know what to do, whenever I just needed to bury my head in the sand and not think about the uncertainty of the world around me, I dove back into my childhood books.
Good for you, man.
And it probably makes a lot of sense given my reading level.
Stop it. That's fun.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So people bullied you and gave you crap in high school? Really?
Yeah, and I think it changed my life for the better. It wasn't high school. I shouldn't have said that. It was, I transferred over from a Catholic school in 6th grade to Mount Lebanon public schooling in the middle of the year. A lot of my friends had left, and so I didn't have anything there. So I left, and I didn't have any friends. And I was the guy who would wear, and I can't believe I wasn't self-aware at all. I would wear like knee socks and tighty whities. And like, I was a nerd, and that's cool. Yeah. If you're a nerd out there, be a nerd, like embrace yourself. Man. And that's what I found in 8th grade, Jason, was I joined the chess club and I had like 3 friends And I had a teacher named Mrs. King. I hope she's out there still kicking it, doing a great job. She changed my life. We would go there after school. We would play chess. She would listen to us. It's so important to have people in your life that listen to you.
Yep.
And something clicked then and there. Like, okay, I wasn't cool. I just, from that point forward, and I swear to God, man, I did not care. I cared about what my friends thought of me in high school. And I wound up making a lot of friends in high school because of it. But I stopped caring what anybody that I deemed cool thought. And man, it was freeing. And you need to do a lot of that in the media too. Like, you can't care what people think or else you're going to drive yourself insane. And
yep, it
was Miss King who really helped out big time in 8th grade.
It's also okay to be a nerd. I'm a real big nerd.
You know what?
Big nerd.
Jason, Pete, I'm happy to hear you say that too, because Doran and I have had these conversations. Doran's like one of the biggest nerds out there.
Yep.
You ask him what year any particular horror movie was made in.
Oh yeah.
He got it
in
for
his
you.
wheelhouse.
He watches a horror movie like every night in the middle of summertime. It's not even close to Halloween. There's no, autumn wind is a raider. No autumn winds blowing in. Like,
Yep.
We all have an inner nerd trapped inside of us, operating us with controls.
Yep. Well, good for you, man. Don't care what anybody says. You do an awesome job. And not that anybody's out there criticizing you right now, but
no, I appreciate it. Jason, this is a really cool concept for a show too, man. Like,
thank you.
And I think you'll have you have had much bigger and better people than I on here. But I think people love getting to know the people that they really think that they know, that they have in their lives every single day. You know what I'm trying to do now? I've made it a bit, Jason. I'm trying to push this thing as close to an hour as possible so that your show just absolutely tanks tonight.
Dude, you're fine. I've got a whole bunch of prep done. I'm more worried about your time. We're good.
And you were flexible too, which is great. Which was great. So I'm happy to jump on with you, and I'm really, really happy that you asked me, man. Seriously.
Well, we've done some of the older generation. I had Smizik on here, and I consider you part of the young, little bit of the younger generation. I know there are people younger than you. I guess we're both kind of tweeners, but anyway, I do hope to explore the Pittsburgh media scene. Have a whole bunch of other people on here talk about what they do and why. I'm gonna have Gene Collier on next week. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, great.
So anyway, thank you for doing this. This has been a pleasure, and listening to Saturday Conversations with Adam Crowley. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it, pal.
Yep.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.